GoPros have always been something that I've wanted but could never really justify buying. After all, as hard as it is to believe, I'm not actually an extreme sports kind of guy. Plus, I also don't own a dog, so there goes your two main reasons why you'd ever want a GoPro. But then, I found a third. A while back, I started riding motorcycles, and this newfound passion led me on some of the most incredible roads our country has to offer. And one thing led to another, and then suddenly I was like, oh, now I need to get a GoPro. It just so happened that all this coincided with one of GoPro's biggest camera launches, their brand new Hero 10. The question is, should the Hero 10 be my first GoPro, or are all GoPros, similar enough that you'd be fine with either one of them? Well, that's what I tried to find out. On the surface of things, it doesn't look like the GoPro Hero 10 is very different from its predecessor, the Hero 9. In fact, when you go to the GoPro website and compare them, the differences seem iterative at best. You've got stuff like a higher frame rate on a resolution that, let's be real, nobody's really gonna use. You get slightly higher res photos and higher res 240 FPS footage. Really? That's all you've got for me? That's all you've included in the big Hero 10? Seems kind of disappointing. But then, I started using it, and I gotta say, you really can feel the difference that the new GP2 processor brings. Everything you do on the Hero 10 is faster and snappier than it is on the Hero 9. The menus scroll smoother, the camera turns on quicker, it starts recording faster, and for an action camera, I think speed is super important. When you're in the moment, or when you see a moment hurtling towards your face, that second or second and a half that the Hero 10 saves you makes a big difference, especially if you don't want the extra battery drain you get from hindsight. And this is all exacerbated if you need it to make a living. Nothing frustrates me quite as much as gear being slow or straight up not working during a shoot when you've already got a million other things to worry about. It's almost like the Hero 9's hardware wasn't designed for the GP1 processor, because it's like, trying to run a AAA game on a Raspberry Pi. Even the front screen can't maintain a smooth refresh rate, which is absolutely wild to me. So as someone who has never owned a GoPro before, this alone was almost enough to convince me that the Hero 10 was the right place to start. Then you start to factor in all the other amazing things that this tiny action camera can do. Now, I know I clowned on the camera's video resolution a little bit because, let's be real, nobody's going to need 5.3K video at 60 frames per second. Not only are the files absolutely massive, but they're also gonna drain your camera's battery a lot faster, and they will be an absolute bitch to edit. Plus, it also limits recording time because heat. But none of that detracts from how incredible it is that something this tiny can shoot 5.3K at 60 FPS for any amount of time at all. And it's not done yet, because it can also shoot 2.7K footage at up to 240 frames per second. Though that's probably going to be too slow for anything I'll ever do, besides, fall off a cliff. So, as a technological achievement, the Hero 10 blows my mind. But unless you're a skateboarding, base jumping, wakeboarder with a penchant for using your action camera as a baseball, you're probably not going to use all the features at the same time. I did try out a couple of recording modes like 5.3K for the more cinematic stuff and 2.7K at 240 frames per second for that time I went whitewater rafting. But for what I needed the action camera for, which was, to document my motorcycle adventures, I mostly shot in 4K 60 frames with the super wide lens. Partly because beyond a little bit more sharpness and a little bit more detail, I didn't really see a whole lot of gain in terms of image quality when shooting at that higher resolution. And resolution really isn't the Hero 10's main problem. In my time with the camera, dynamic range and low light were two things it struggled with the most. When you're shooting under direct sunlight, the camera will have trouble with the highlights. This can sometimes cause the bright areas in your frame, like clouds and metallic surfaces, to be blown out, especially if you're shooting on like small mountain roads with a lot of shadows from the trees. You can mitigate some of this with a little tweaking in post and by shooting in GoPro's flat color profile, but Zach, my editor, tells me that it's not quite like shooting flat on like a proper camera because the details and the data just isn't there for something so small. But I am comparing this to much more capable cameras with larger sensors here. For a camera that's as tiny as the Hero 10, the dynamic range is actually pretty impressive. Plus, you can also slap on a bunch of different filters like an ND or a graduated ND to help with this particular problem. Low light, however, remains the bane of small sensors. I found the best results with capping the ISO at 800 because you get a lot less noise, but if your scenes are really super dark, then capping it at ISO 1600 will be better because you will lose a bunch of detail in the shadows otherwise. Now, I will note that I am still very new to GoPros and action cameras in general, so I'm probably not the best person to give you advice on camera settings and stuff like that, because I'm still experimenting myself. I will, however, stand my ground when I say that Super View is the best lens to use when you're filming motorcycle onboard footage. The ultra-wide angle gives a great sense of speed, especially if you're using a chest mount, and it's also the most forgiving when it comes to positioning your camera. I did experiment with the other lenses, including the incredible linear plus horizon leveling, but I felt like its ability to straighten everything out took away from the feeling I wanted to convey when you lean the motorcycle. I was also surprised by the quality of the microphone. Even with all that wind blasting in my face and the camera mounted on my chin, the built-in microphone still gave pretty usable audio.
And all of that combined with the super wide lens and the freakishly good stabilization from Hypersmooth, it can actually be like a decent vlogging camera, in a pinch. Yeah, you can use either the super duper wide lens or something a little bit more linear, and it'll do it. It'll do just fine. I kind of still like the super wide lens, even though it makes my head look a little big, but it works. If you really need like a GoPro, the screen with the smooth refresh rate, that's some good stuff. That is some good stuff.
Perhaps to nobody's surprise, the GoPro Hero 10 is an excellent GoPro, and it's probably the best GoPro that money can buy right now. But if we were to go back to my original question, should this be your first GoPro? This is where it gets a little tricky, because besides the more powerful processor, you can find pretty much everything else that the Hero 10 does well on its predecessors. The waterproof body with the built-in mounting pins debuted on the Hero 8. I think Hypersmooth is still as awesome 90% of the time on the Hero 7 as it is on the Hero 10. And if all you need from a front screen was to check framing, then the Hero 9's display will do that just as well. Perhaps the most notable physical change is the new oleophobic lens on the Hero 10, which makes a huge difference when shooting in rain. But even this is interchangeable with the Hero 9. But what I think the Hero 10 brings to the table is a level of refinement. It's taking what is essentially a functional experience and turning it into a great experience. It can do pretty much everything you'd ever want an action camera to do, and it'll do it better than any other action camera I've ever used. What's more, GoPro didn't do away with the removable battery the way DJI did with the Action 2, so you can easily swap the batteries when they die down the road. They're also the same kind of batteries you'd find on the Hero 9, and it will also last the Hero 10 about an hour of shooting in 4K. And you can actually get the Hero 10 with all this refinement for not a whole lot more than the Hero 9. You can find them on Shopee for a little over 2,000 ringgit for just the GoPro, but during sales, this will drive prices down to below 2,000 ringgit. So if you don't already have a GoPro, I actually think that the Hero 10 is actually a good place to start. it's definitely where I would start if I was buying a brand new GoPro because of, you know, how complete the whole experience is. But if you already have a GoPro that's like a Hero 7 or newer, I don't think it's worth paying the extra just to upgrade to it. Unless there's like a specific feature that you need to have that's only available on the Hero 10, I think that everything from like Hero 7 and above will be able to do just fine in the hands of an experienced user. But yeah, that's what I think after spending like about a month with the GoPro Hero 10. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. I'd love to hear your thoughts, so definitely leave them down there. Alright, but that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and also like us on Facebook. Our home on the internet, as usual, is on soyachinchow.com. And I'm Rory Lee, so I will see you in the next video. Bye.